Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin and Rugby Preview Show. Joining me to look ahead to Friday night's match at the RDS is someone earning his 26th Harpin cap. Welcome back to Mr. Tom Coleman.
Evening, Jeff. Always good to be back on a Heineken Cup week.
Indeed.
After a win.
Definitely, absolutely. Now, before we start, just in case people missed our last pod, do check it out. Not only was it our 200th episode, but we also had a quiz on the season so far. So have a listen and see how you get on. It's one pod back in the feed. And while you're at it, why not subscribe as well to get all our shows this season? Now, Tom, before we get to this week's match, you made the journey to Havre last weekend. Now, I presume you had no complaints about what happened on the pitch, but while you did record a great report for our wrap-up pod last week, now we have you here. Maybe you could just tell us a bit more about what the whole experience was like at the Stade Océan.
It's you know, I think the main takeaway was there's lots of horror stories of fans cancelled. You know, I know there was weather issues in Dublin, and that really sort of compounded everything. But there was loads of flights cancelled into Beauvais. There was no direct flights into Le Havre. Anyone that I've spoken to there was probably 500 to maybe 700 eventually made the trip. I would say that's a rough guess, and obviously not canvass them all, but the vast majority came through Paris. It was an extra 500k journey return over and back, so there was an extra financial cost. Forget about as we mentioned, the green cost of transferring 16,000 fans from Paris, whether it be from Paris or from Leinster, was just a bit crazy. You know what I mean? Paris isn't short of stadiums. I get why the stadium was booked out. You know, all the clubs are coming out of COVID. They had a concert. I have no issue with that. But Paris has plenty of stadiums. And to add 500k onto everybody's journey in winter. You know, it was freezing fog and there was snow on the way back on the Sunday when we were driving back to Paris. So, you know, even weather conditions and stuff like that, fans definitely came last. And any Racing fans we spoke to there, they weren't happy with it either. You know, their club, they definitely weren't happy with it. I can understand Racing have this policy to expand the game, expand their base out of Paris, because Stade really still is the number one club in Paris amongst Parisian supporters. It's 10-1 or something, even though there's a long history there with Racing. So they've had games before, I think, out in Brussels, if I recall, in Heineken Cup, and there is a lot of rugby clubs there in Le Havre or Caen and stuff like that. So I get what they're trying to do, but it just, whether it be a Racing fan or a Leinster fan, we'll definitely put last on this. And then the stadium itself, there'd only one port, one entrance in. So it doesn't matter what side of the stadium you were. So all the Leinster fans happened to be nearly opposite the gate. So as soon as you got in, it was still another 10 or 15 minutes traipse around on the inside of the stadium. I didn't understand why they had only one gate in when the stadium was, I don't know, 60% full.
That sounds like a bad safety issue anyway.
Yeah, now at the time, we literally got, myself and my people who were traveling with, I missed Porter's try. We were 2 minutes in to the game, or 3 minutes in when we sat in our seat, and we weren't the only ones, so I mean, but I was lucky to be there. It was great, and it's greatness to absolutely witness a fantastic Leinster performance, and social media was littered with stories of flights cancelled. Our own supporter club had buses cancelled from Beauvais, and I know that was weather related too, and might have happened either way with Ryanair cancelling flights. I happened to be lucky just to be in Aer Lingus. I suppose the atmosphere in Le Havre that night when France played England and saved the day, and obviously our own result. But just that aside, I don't understand the logic of shoving it out to Le Havre,
Yeah, because I mean, it's like it was bad weather and there were problems with flights and all that kind of stuff. But if you take that out of it, like you say, it's the decision to move it there, and it's like whatever inconvenience it was for the Leinster fans, which of course we'd be concerned with, but for them making the decision, they are hurting their own fans. Like you say, I understand moving things around. Teams do that. Munster do it. They play games in Cork. It is a good idea to move it around and expand the fan base. But when you buy a season ticket, you're looking forward. You're buying that to looking forward to the big games. And I say this has got to be one of the biggest games on their schedule this season, so you think they'd want to keep it local, but still, listen, it's been and gone. And like you say, the result did soften the blow. So it's good.
Yeah,
good we got to come back safe and sound.
And when it comes to distances, Ireland is Ireland and France is France. They're incomparable. but it's a 500k return journey from Le Havre to Paris. I know the roads are good, but it's like akin to moving us playing in Letterkenny.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not like let's bring them to Wexford,
Yes.
bring them to
Yeah.
Donegal, or bring them to Achill.
Yeah.
That's how
It's
far this.
hardly a satellite town.
No, it's hard. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're more likely to see the White Cliffs of Doher than you are the Eiffel Tower.
Mm. Yeah, but anyway, look, okay, listen, we're gonna leave it there and move on. This week's feature Harpin match, of course, as you can see there, is Leinster v Gloucester. It's in round 2 of the Heineken Champions Cup, and it's taking place at the RDS in Ballsbridge on Friday, December the 16th, kicking off at 8 p.m., being shown on free-to-air RTE2 and BT Sport 1. Leinster named their match day squad at lunchtime on Thursday, so why don't we get to Harpin on it, starting with the back line. At fullback, we've got Hugo Keenan. The wingers are James Lowe and Jimmy O'Brien, and the centers, Charlie Natai, Gary Ringrose, who's the captain, and the halfbacks are Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne.
Yeah, I suppose the only change in there is Luke coming in. It's not surprising if anyone looking at Leinster over the last 20 years, even though it's not quite a Christmas back-to-back match, it sort of is. Leinster have always, most teams with a bit of depth would change it slightly from week to week. So it's no surprise Luke starts. He's actually had a good season this season, and it's good to see Charlie Natai playing again with Gary Ringrose. I thought it was definitely his best outing. He's definitely getting better, and he's showing his class week by week. And James Lowe just seems like he's not been away. He had stellar performance against Ulster. He was outstanding against Racing, and it's. For a guy, he's a big guy. You know what I mean? Rob. We always used to say Rob Kearney used to just look like he's never been out when he'd be out for a while, and but Rob is fit and slight and quite lean. James Lowe is a big guy, and so for him to hit the ground running with the quality performances in the last 2 weekends, is outstanding. So he'll be hungry again to go against Gloucester. So yeah, loving the look of that back line, and I suppose a special mention to Ross Byrne, who had an absolutely cracking game, and that little cameo against Australia. Not that he didn't never do it for Leinster, but it seems to have pushed him on another little bit of level over the last few weeks. He was very vocal on the pitch. I was close to the sideline in Le Havre, and he was. You could hear him. It didn't matter if Leinster were 30 points up. He was driving again and driving. So he must be taking cues from Johnny on communication on pitch, because it's a good thing when you can turn around and say we didn't actually miss Jonathan Sexton. That's how good Ross has been over the last few weeks.
Definitely. Okay, we'll move on to the forwards now. And in the front row, we've got Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher, and Michael Alatoa. The second row, Ross Maloney and James Ryan. And the back row, Clayton Doris, Josh van der Fleer, and Jack Conan.
Yeah, again, similar to the backs, a few tweaks here and there. It's no surprise. Anyone would have guessed that Sheehan would have started one and Kelleher the other. They'll both play similar minutes, I'd say, over these 2 weeks. Michael Alatoa had a cracking game against Racing. The Leinster scrum really put it up to them. I know there was a lot of post-match revisionism from pundits about, the Racing pack suited Leinster and they're not the atypical pack. And I was like, seriously? I think the Leinster stroke Irish lads just can't win. You know what I mean? If they play bad, they're getting on toast by South Africans. If they play well, it's so whatever. That's just one of those themes that seem to be going along. No matter how many times we try and bury the ghost of Will Skelton with La Rochelle, no matter who we play, it's like if it's not Will Skelton, it doesn't count for some reason. These good performances. It's good to see Jack come back at 8, and we see Caelan slot to 8 to 6. I do even think at this early part of the season, that looks like our second choice back row. I think Ryan Baird really, since he's come back from injury, the physicality he adds in the scrum, because he's sort of an auxiliary lock anyway, along with Jenkins, is helping that scrum. And obviously Josh van der Fleer, and then I think Caelan Norris, as we know, I think outside between himself, Aldrich, and Ardy Save, there's your 3 best 8s in the world. But look, Conan's no slouch, and I'm sure he'll be really hungry to show why he's a lion and why he's done well out for Leinster. So it mixes it up enough that back row is well used to playing each other in that 6, 7, 8. So yeah, fantastic. And Ross Maloney, even when he came on again against Racing, he just doesn't miss a beat. He's just a real pro. He's a guy. If he doesn't matter if he's starting 1 to 24 as a 24th man, he's he gives us all for Leinster. You know what I mean? He's a real fans' favourite. So he'll lead from the front again against Gloucester the weekend, no problem.
Yeah, no question. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the bench. And at 16, we've got Dan Sheehan, and then the other front row is Ed Byrne and Cian Healy. The other subs are Joe McCarthy, Max Deegan, and the backs, Jemison Gibson Park, Jonathan Sexton, and Jordan Larmour.
Yeah, well, it's a very strong bench. I know, stating the bloody obvious here, but I don't know what the score is going to be with 25 minutes to go. But when Sexton and Larmour comes on, it's not going to get any easier. I can't see Jonathan Sexton, no matter what the score is, whether it's a close game or Leinster win by 40. Sexton is going to try and push that on to win by 60 or 70, or win the game, whatever the scenario is. It's good to see Jordan Larmour back. We need a little bit more depth in that back division on the wings. So again, he'll be hungry. And I think putting McCarthy and Deegan is a really good call. I think both of them have played, especially Max Deegan. I probably would have been a little bit of a critic of him in the previous seasons, but he's done really well this year when he's come on. So he's getting rewarded for his form that he's done in the URC, which is good to see. We're all probably surprised Cian Healy was available to play last week. Still trying to get my head around how that was turned over, but it is what it is. He ended up scoring a try at the end of the game against Racing, but the Healy tight head experiment goes on for another week, and I'm sure he'll do fine again this weekend. But Dan Sheehan to come off the bench and probably score a few tries, that's not going to get any easier for Gloucester when he comes on after Kelleher does the early shift. But yeah, liking the look, Gibson Park is going to add that pace. So you're bringing on a form 9 and 10 with half an hour to go in Gibson Park and Sexton. Any club would be. I don't care if you're the Crusaders or Saracens or Toulouse. You'd be happy with that 9 and 10 coming on. So yeah, I like the look of the 23. It's got players coming back from injury, and it's all we want to do is just hopefully get the 5 points the weekend and everybody through, come unscathed, and move on to the Interpros then for Christmas.
Okay, so now we move on to our opposition. That's namely Gloucester Rugby. And as always, my graphics department hopefully is putting the lineup on the screen down there, so I won't read it out. But if you're listening to the pod, it's also in the program notes. Now, Tom, I've watched most of Gloucester's matches this season, and I have to say, this is not the match day 23 I'd have picked for Friday if I was looking to come away from the RDS with anything close to a good result.
Yeah, Gloucester have a little bit of form with this. It did, a friend of the pod from Ulster, Ian Frizzell, pointed out to us today that, didn't they do this against Munster and nearly got in trouble for it, which they did. Look, it's a bit baffling to me. I know it's a bit alien. Gloucester are somewhat sort of, of course, we're not cocky enough to forego what the result is going to be. I remember Leinster playing London Irish and getting done over in the RDS, and we've had narrow losses before, so there's we're not going to be that cocky. It has to be done on the pitch first. But in saying that, Gloucester have put the white flag up here. They've changed 13 players. I know they have Leicester, I think, the following week in the league, but they're sort of saying we're just ruling this game out, and I don't know what that says to the rest of the whole squad, saying no matter what we do, we're not going to beat Leinster. We're just going to let this one go. I don't buy the whole minutes played. I think because Leinster's team, just the way it is at the moment, makes up the bulk of the Irish team. The minutes this season is through the roof, and we've played a lot of our key players have played a lot of minutes in the league. Even if you take somebody like Gary Ringrose, I bet you there's not one Gloucester player has more minutes than him or Josh van der Fleer. I haven't done the maths, but I would guess. So there's a lot of unknowns on the the usual Johnny Mays, etc. aren't playing and stuff like that. So and it's unfortunate. I'm sure Gloucester fans have paid a few quid to get over to Dublin for the weekend, and they won't see their full strength team either. So yeah, it's a bit of a letdown, to be honest with you. If this was a French team, the English media wouldn't be long about shrugging their shoulder saying, Montpellier or the dark days of Bourgogne just not turning up. This is no different. Gloucester have picked a team that they don't think is, they're not going to win this game. And I'm sure we'll have the same stories again if Leinster rack up big points in this game about what's it going to do for Leinster, a la like Bath last year or Montpellier. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And I'm sure Leinster will take it no different, whether it was their first choice 23 or second choice 23. Billy 12 Trees is still blast from the past there. He's still playing. So At least we'll recognise him. But look, it's a Heineken Cup game. It'll be fairly full in the RDS. It's leading up to Christmas. There'll be good atmosphere around town. We're here to support our home team. Whatever the opposition decide to pick, that's their problem. I just don't get it as a supporter that they fought all year to qualify for the Champions League, the Heineken Cup. And I'm sure they want to go on to the latter stages. And I'm sure they want to go on to the latter stages in Kingsholm, where they're a difficult team enough to beat there, as we'll see in the new year. But, they've sort of foregone that just by throwing away a fixture on paper anyway so far.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future holds, but the coach doesn't think they're going to win over here.
So listen, we'll move on to the officials now, and it's an all French team. You see, Luc Ramos is there, the referee with his team. The weather for the RDS on Friday night, it's been really cold recently. It's supposed to be chilly, maybe a bit of rain and snow. A bit windy as well. So it's hopefully the conditions won't play too much of a part in the proceedings. Which brings us nicely to our head on the block time, and we're going to make a few predictions. First of all, obviously this match, Leinster against Gloucester. How do you see it going?
Yeah, probably going to get accused of being the cocky Leinster fan, but
that's going to happen anyway, no matter what.
That's going to happen anyway. Look, yeah. better teams have come to, better 23s have come to the RDS and got an awful hockey, and this could really be a long night for Gloucester. It's hard to see Leinster not getting 50 points, and it's crazy to say that in a Heineken Cup game. But Leinster are very hard, obviously, to beat at home. But yeah, I can't see anything but a very easy win for Leinster. It's the sort of game that could be over after 20 minutes, and people getting cold in the sand with cold feet, and yeah, it's unfortunate. But I can only see one winner in this game. Yeah,
we said it last week. That it was the discipline that was important. Now, as it turned out, it was Racing's discipline that was the problem. But in a match like this, it would really take some really silly challenges, and on our part, when we don't need to. If we just stay within ourselves and play our own game, we should be able to create enough chances to stay ahead. So that's the only thing that you can see going the other way. But fingers crossed it goes well. Okay, so just a quick look at the other matches for the provinces. Connacht are traveling to Brive.
Yeah, I fancy Connacht here. Brive, I think, have only won 2 games all year against Bayonne, and I think maybe Perpignan at the start of the season. They've lost a lot of games at home. They're bottom of the top 14, so I have a feeling Brive won't care about this competition. I don't think the teams have been named, or maybe the teams have been named. There's some interesting things. Papali'i, who's ex-Connacht, is starting for Brive, so it'll be interesting there. Sam Arnold, who's ex one or two provinces, he's also playing for Brive, and Trevor Brennan's son is starting at Loosehead. So there's from anyone watching the game that there's an interest there from an Irish point of view. But yeah, I fancy Connacht to win. Their selection somewhat backfired last week, but that's okay. They have to take a chance. They're looking at they're trying to do a few things on a few different fronts. But I fancy Connacht to win down in Brive. I think Brive, really, it's about top 14 survival at this stage.
Absolutely, and it's just a shame. I mean, it's being televised, but apparently the Connacht fans have to pay for this one. But I suppose it's good that they're getting a chance to see it. But it's just with so many free to air matches, it's just a shame for that anyway. But listen, moving on to Ulster now. They've had a rotten couple of weeks, obviously, and doesn't look to be getting any better with the European champions coming into Belfast. If it is Belfast.
If it is Belfast, yeah, we could be keeping the seats warm for them in the RDS. Well, that was the route during the week. Maybe this is my heart thinking in my head. I just think, look, Ravenhill, I was up there earlier on this year, is always a difficult place. And it is one of those stadiums where the home crowd is a 16-man, and it does have more an effect than, and Ulster are a different team at home. We always find it difficult to beat them up there. And maybe even Leinster won up there, even though the RDS game was a completely different game. Also, arguably could have bet us up there earlier on the season. I think Ulster are going to win. I think it's one of those nights. It's going to be a cold night in Belfast, and I think it's backs against the wall stuff. I think this, their season is on the line somewhat. The European champions in town, and they've turned big teams up there over before. So yeah, I fancy Ulster to win. It'll be a hard, tough game. But I think Ulster will narrowly up there.
Well, fair play. And Northampton against Munster on Sunday.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Munster continue their sort of mini form. They're a little bit stodgy against Toulouse on. I only seen the second half of that game by the time I got back out of Le Havre. Toulouse are always a difficult team to beat. Northampton have a sort of mixed feeling with the Heineken Cup. As we know, we've played them 50 million times over the last 10 years with Leinster. But I think they've only lost at home once this season. That was against Leicester earlier on in the season. They've taken some big scalps in Franklin Garden this year. Saracens, Bristol. So I think it'll be a home win over in Northampton. I just don't think Munster quite there yet to put the win in. Losing John Ryan is I'm not going to get into should have kept him or did they offer him a contract. That's by all accounts they did offer him, and he's going ahead to Super Rugby. But I fancy Northampton at home. I just think their home form this season is better than it has in previous seasons, and Munster haven't really done it on the road this year yet. That's the reality of it.
Yep, definitely. Okay, listen, right, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks, Tom, for joining me today. I hope you have a good weekend, sir.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you.
And to the viewers and listeners, be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are. And if you want to get involved in the conversation during the match, we're covering it on Mastodon these days. So why don't you join us before heading over to the Facebook page for your final thoughts, where we'll share all the best comments on our wrap-up pod this Sunday. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.